Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Juliana and in today's video we are going to talk about Solaris. This is going to be a review about this book, and this is by Stanislaw Lem. This is a book that is a science fiction. This was written in 1961. Stanislaw Lem is a Polish writer, right? Polish. From Poland. How do you call it? I don't remember. But he's from Poland, and this book is considered a masterpiece in science fiction, like a classic in this genre. So it's really consecrated. I think that's how you say it. This book was made in a movie, first in 1972 by Andrei Tarkovsky. This is, I think, a Russian director. And then in 2002 by Steven Soderbergh, an American one. I think the American one is with George Clooney, but as what I understand, the Russian movie is more faithful to the book, and the American one is a bit more free, you know. I haven't watched the movies, but they say that the Russian one got old in a really bad way, so I'm supposing that the effects are a bit dated, but you know, still I want to watch it. So they say even though the effects are a bit dated, the movie is still very good. And the American one, just for curiosity, I really would love to watch it too. But they say this one have some details from the book, but it's little details. It's not so faithful to the book. So in this book we have Kelvin, our main character, that he is a psychologist, and he gets into interplanetary missions. And so in the beginning of this book, we understand that he's on a mission to go to Solaris. That's the title of the book. That's a planet that is being investigated by the humankind. And we accompany him going to that planet. And when he gets there, there's no one to receive him. So there he knows there's 3 scientists that are already in Solaris, and he knows one of them. And when he gets there, it's a bit strange because there's no one to receive him. And when he gets out of his ship, everything is a mess, like disorganized and like trash all over the place, and it's really strange. And when he goes to the station, he gets in front of one of the scientists that he doesn't know. And he becomes a bit surprised, like scared that he's there, with the expression of frightened. And he becomes to ask if he is really there, if he's real. And that for Kelvin is strange. And so when he gets convinced that Kelvin is really there, he becomes to explain that the scientist that Kelvin knew is dead, and he died in really strange circumstances, that he killed himself. And Kelvin gets a bit surprised and wants to talk with the other scientist that is in the station, but that first one says that is going to be impossible because the second scientist barricaded himself in his room and doesn't want to get out. But Kelvin insists and goes to that room, knocks the door, and asks to talk with that scientist. But at first he doesn't want to open the door, and Kelvin threatens him that he's going to take the door down, and then he finally opens the door, but he doesn't invite Kelvin to enter his room, and he begins to hear steps of children and screams of children, what he finds really odd, because there's supposed to be no one there beyond that two scientists. And he doesn't get many answers from the scientists that was barricaded in the room. I think that's Arturius. And so he becomes a bit frustrated by that. And then the other scientist that he first met, that is Snout says that in that station there's only him and Sir Arturius and now Kelvin. And so if he sees anyone else, that person doesn't exist. And so Kelvin becomes a bit, surprised and unsure of what is happening, because Snout becomes to explain that he's going to have a visitation, what he calls a visitation. So what he says is that there some strange things happen, because that planet has an ocean, the majority of that planet is an ocean, but that ocean is intelligent. And we, through the book by Kelvin, we become to understand what happened in the first missions to that planet, because he is going to read some books that are from that dead scientist, Gabarin, I think that's the name. And while he's reading that books, he's going to explain to us what happened in the first missions. And so in first missions, that ocean will begin to expel formats of the reality of humans, like buildings, a baby, something like that. And what we understand is that right now the ocean evolved and is now expelling more complex forms, and that forms show themselves as visitations. And so I think that I'm going to stay here. I want to develop more about the book, but that will be a spoiler. So I'm going to stay here right now, and be aware that further on I'm going to talk a bit more about the book and so that will be a spoiler. So if you don't want to watch it, stop here. And if you want to hear me out and know a bit more about the story, keep watching. So the visitation that Calvin is going to have is his wife. And we become to learn that she committed suicide when she was 19 because Calvin ended the relationship, and so he transports with him that guilt, and his wife appears to him as she was last seen when she was 19 before she committed suicide. And he tries to get rid of her because when she comes to him, it's like she doesn't have total memory of what happened to her, and he talks to her, but of course he's a bit scared of what is happening, so he tries to get rid of her, but the next day or the next night she appears again, and it's like he can't get rid of her, so he gives up on the idea and he goes to Snout, that's the other scientist, the first one that he saw when he came to the planet, and asks him what is going on, and he explains that happened to him what is happening to them, that the ocean is delivering that visitations, and they format some kind of theories on why the ocean is doing that. First they think it's like a welcoming that is doing that. Then they think it's like the ocean is showing them how horrible they are by get a form of guilt that they carry with them. So it's a bit confusing in a way why the ocean is really doing that. So that's the purpose of their staying there, in summary, right? But how the longer the time that happens and his wife stays there, we never discover what are the visitations of the other scientists. That's one thing. So because they don't want to show Calvin. First of all, Snout doesn't give anything away of his visitation, never. And then Sartorius is barricaded in his room, so we never get to see who his visitation. So we just accompany Calvin on this one, and we are a passage in the book that I think the name of the wife is Harry, and Harry begins to talk about another scientist that Calvin knows, but it was impossible to her to know that said scientist because Calvin just know that scientist way long before she passed away. So we understand that the memories that she has is his memories. So it's like a reflection. That's something that they discuss between Calvin and Snout, that the visitations that they have is like a reflection of their own memories, and is a reflection of the memory that he has of her. So it's like a perfect without flaws in a way, you know. And so as longer the time passes, Calvin begins to, because Harry begins to ask questions, because it's like she gets that something is off, and she begins to ask questions and he begins to dodge it, but something happens again, like she tries to kill herself again, and of course that she can't. And then time goes by and he begins to get used to her presence and get accustomed to her being there. And so he begins to wonder if he can leave the planet with her. And Snout explains that perhaps that is going to be impossible, because the approximation of the ocean is what possibilitates her presence. So if he gets away, perhaps she gets away. And then it becomes a bit diffuse of what, because they try to do some experiences with the ocean. That's the initiative of Sartorius, the scientist that was barricaded in his room with X-rays. But it's like they are on a dead end. They can't get rid of that visitations, and they don't have a real explanation of why that is happening and how that is happening. Because he can touch her, you know, she's like a physical person. It is like it would be a real person. It's like the ocean was able to replicate the human form in a real form. And so then the book ends with him going out there in Solaris, in a helicopter, a kind of an helicopter. And you know, I love to read this one. You're going to end the book in how do you say it? Limbo. So you don't going to have answers for the questions that you're going to have. Oh, so Harry, the wife, she at the end of this book asks Snout to disappear. So at the end of this book he's going to be alone, and in a way this is also about loneliness and the guilt that sometimes humans carry. And also the frustrations and disappointments that people have with each other. You are going to see that through the relationship of Harry and Calvin, and also Calvin and Snout. And you know, many questions will be raised within the reading of this book, but still, you at the end of this book, you are not going to have real answers for the questions that you have. So it's going to be an incognite till the end of the book. But I really enjoyed reading this. At the beginning, you just want to know what is going on and what is happening. So the reading of this book is really fast. It has a bit of a dialogue, so it's really easy to go through the lines. And sometimes he has passages that are about Solaris and about the missions and about the history of the planet, of the investigation, you know. So maybe in that parts are a bit dragged, but overall it's a really fast read. I really enjoyed. It's a really reflexive book, and yeah, you become to wonder, like, what would we found out in other planets. This is an interesting perspective and an interesting idea, and you become to wonder what will be the future of humankind. Also, this made me think of our efforts to get to Mars. So Mars will be our first real endeavor in an interplanetary universe. And you know, I really admire people that already volunteered for getting there, you know, and I become to wonder what type of person you have to be. You have to be really strong, right? Like mentally. Could you imagine what is going to be when people get there? Like, first of all, you have to be really intelligent and know about many things. And after all that, you have to be really mentally strong. So you will be in another planet with nothing there, literally. You have to build from scratch, and you know, of course I think that when they send someone, that is not going to be only one person. So in a way, the person that goes, the people that goes, they will not be alone, but still, for you to go to another planet and stay there, you have to be really mentally strong. And with this book, I become to wonder about that, and how, for example, I never see myself in that situation. I think I'm not capable of cope. And yeah, and you become to wonder what strange things could we find in the universe, and how life perhaps exists, but that life and that forms of life could be so different from ours that perhaps in first instance we wouldn't consider a form of life. I mean, in this book, the forms of life, and the intelligent one is the form of an ocean. So you begin to think about that stuff and wonder what type of forms of life could we find. So this book is very interesting in a psychological way, in a science fiction way. So you have many layers. You have science fiction, you have a psychology perspective, you have a social perspective, interrelation perspective. So you have many layers in this book, and my mind becomes to wonder about the things that I have told you. So I think you will too. So I hope you pick this one up. I think you will really enjoy it. If you have read it, please let me know what you thought, what things that this book brought you, and yeah, please let me know. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please consider to do so. Leave a like, it helps a lot the divulgation of the video and the divulgation of the channel. Follow me on Instagram, I'll be posting there whenever I have a book review to do or anything else. And yeah, I think that's it. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!